Blue Beetle is currently available on Max. It has audio description, and this has a very odd and weird and lovely supporting cast. From Becky G to Academy Award nominee Adriana Barraza to George Lopez to Susan Sarandon. Uh, what? And it stars the kid from Cobra Kai, whose name I'm not going to butcher because I don't know how to pronounce it. But Miguel from Cobra Kai is the lead. So all of those dojo lessons that he had are obviously paying off here. I mean, he had to train at least a little bit to make it look real, whether he's doing his own stunts or not. He had to have at least some training. He can't just like walk on set every day and just look pretty. So, yeah, I'm sure that helped him get cast as Blue Beetle. Jamie Reyes. And this is a DC film that a lot of people were wondering what would happen to Blue Beetle. Because it's sort of like the end, it's almost the end. We still have Aquaman. Of the pre-James Gunn era and the James Gunn era. So it's just depends on what he plans on doing. I'm kind of nervous for the James Gunn stuff, honestly, because I like some of the casting that happened out of the pre-James Gunn era. So I don't necessarily want everybody to be recast. I just want James Gunn to figure out how to use them better. I don't think the casting is the problem for some of these actors. I think just the films that they were in are the problem. So what's up with Blue Beetle? Should it be kept? Well, let's talk about it. First of all, my answer to the question is, as long as George Lopez is willing to follow and shepherd this series around, I found him oddly entertaining, and I don't normally enjoy George Lopez. Every time he's had a sitcom, I've watched it and been like, this is fine, and then I've just moved on. But I don't know, I've never been a huge George Lopez fan. But here, I think he has just the right amount of wise cracking in the background beneath Miguel to make this film work. But yeah, it's a college grad who, he's trying to find work, and he goes and lives with his family, and he gets hooked up with this job, and this job leads to him eventually this niece to our evil villain of the film, Susan Sarandon. A weird choice. I'll get to that in a minute. The niece, her niece, takes this thing and is trying to hide it from her evil aunt, and gives it to Jamie to hide, and he's told not to look at it, but he does, and it's this scarab thing that takes over his body, and it really can't explain Blue Beetle to you. I'm sure that there are people who read the comics and all of this made sense to them, but I was like, okay. I've seen a lot of comics, so this is not that weird. But did I fully grasp and understand, like the whole thing? No, this is like Moon Knight. This is like a little trying to explain Moon Knight to somebody and be like, well, there's Khonshu and the, just start getting into it. And you're like, I don't know how to, he's Moon Knight. He's just Blue Beetle. I don't know. Just stop asking weird questions and just accept the fact that there's a hero called this, where they have a weird set of powers and they come from somewhere. Yeah, it's not something that deeply made a lot of sense to me, but at the same time, a lot of things in comic books really don't make a lot of sense once you start breaking them down, and become really hard to explain in sort of like an elevator pitch, short sentence type way. But he becomes the Blue Beetle, and this becomes problematic for his family, becomes problematic for him. It's kind of a little like being Iron Man, but like the Iron Man suit controls Tony Moore would be a little bit like the comparison I could say to Blue Beetle, somewhat. And that's that's the progression of the movie. Susan Sarandon wants to create an army of robot super soldiers. She already has one that is a badass and works for her, and she wants to create more like him, but she needs the scarab that crawled up Jamie's ass, and she needs to extract it. And this movie just gets really weird. Um, it feels a little bit like Shazam because of the family dynamic, but it's also actually his family and not like a found family type of thing. But it just does. It feels a little bit like Shazam for the DC universe. Like we're coming back around to this thing. Also because Jamie is so young, he also doesn't really know what his power set is, which is exactly where Shazam was. Shazam is also trying to like fumble around with his power set. He doesn't really know what he's doing. You know, he's like, oh, I inherited a superhero power. What do I do? It feels very similar to a film that they already have in their universe. That would be my main commentary towards DC in general. Would be, and they were doing this before James Gunn, so somebody thought this was okay before. They couldn't differentiate enough in the initial plot development stage to go out of their way to try to make Blue Beetle feel less Shazam-y than, you know. However, you could say that about a lot of, Marvel origin stories too, is that we also have that sort of regular guy gets powers. What are my powers? That totally happens. It's just when you start adding the family dynamic to it, not everybody has a large family that also ends up participating and joining in on the fun. And that's what happens in both Shazam and Blue Beetle. In Shazam, obviously, he shares the power with the rest of his family, and they will become their own heroes. In here, Jamie's family just owns a lot of guns. And they just kind of like roll up. I mean, it works. It works when it needs to. So they absolutely do join in on the fun and do that whole like, don't mess with my family, But no, they don't all become Beatles. That would be way too on the nose for this. So that's how they separate the franchise, I suppose, is that the family doesn't get powers. They just have to fight like regular folk. But they do fight. So again, I thought of Shazam almost the entire movie. And the closeness of it, and just what would happen if these two heroes cross paths in the same DC universe with their families, like a Shazam versus Blue Beetle film, and they both have families. And I started like spinning wildly out of control while this film was going on. I thought it was fine. I don't know. I don't love it. It didn't really do one thing for me either way. I didn't immediately go, I need more Blue Beetle in my life, or I also didn't go, oh, this is awful. I just kind of was like, oh, Blue Beetle. Would I keep him? Sure, yeah. I don't know that I need more Blue Beetle movies. I think I'd start incorporating him into the rest of the DC universe. I don't think they did enough with his story and with this side plot with his corporation that's run by Susan Sarandon that the niece is trying to get access to. I don't think that they did enough with that to necessarily make me feel like I need to like stay in that universe. I actually didn't like Susan Sarandon in this, and I love Susan Sarandon. She just felt like she was in a very different movie. Like she didn't get the memo on how to be in a superhero movie. But the same thing could be said for like Helen Mirren in Shazam. Not every time when we ask somebody who's elevated, who's a fantastic actor or actress to come in, does it work? It doesn't always. We can't always just pull on these top tier talents and throw them into any old movie. Sometimes they just feel out of place. They're not what you remember. I don't think anybody looked at Aquaman and was like, man, that Nicole Kidman performance. I feel like it's cool, it's prestige, I get it, I get why we're doing it, but they're never the performance that you walk away from going, man, that Helen Mirren in that last Shazam movie. Ugh. That was a performance, right? No. And I feel like they do it to bring some sort of level of prestige to the cast. Susan Sarandon is by far the biggest name in the cast, in terms of box office and Oscar nominations and everything like that. Sorry. Hashtag sorry, not sorry to the entire Latino community. I mean, I know that George Lopez I'm not saying he's small, but when you look at the two careers, George just hasn't done the movies that Susan has. And a lot of times being able to bring in the box office bucks in something like Thelma and Louise is a lot more impressive than having like 5 seasons of a sitcom. So, yeah. Or however long his new one is going to run, Lopez versus Lopez, which is heading into its 2nd season. Yeah, it just... I don't know. I would have gone a different way with it. I would have found somebody... I don't know that it needed to be a big name. It just needed to be a fun name. There are a lot of people on TV shows who have made a presence for themselves on the show that they're on and probably could have done this role a lot better than Sarandon. It was very weird for me. I didn't like her performance at all. And she felt so out of place, too. Every time she spoke, it was out of place. I kept thinking to myself, how does she have a Latino niece? The whole time I was like, why? What happened to this? Can we explain this family dynamic a little bit better? It's very weird. It's very weird that she's in there. It's like they really wanted a white female villain, and they didn't really know what else to do. So I guess Susan Sarandon was free. I don't know. I got nothing on that. But I liked the rest of the cast. The cast that I'm sure somebody just thought I besmirched by saying they weren't as big as star power. I thought they were way more entertaining. You don't have to have star power to be entertaining. I love Miguel. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I love the kid that plays Jamie Reyes / Miguel. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I think he's phenomenal, and I would love to hear his name pronounced more so that I can get it right, because I don't want to be bumbling through his name with a video. I'm just not going to do that. So I'm not confident enough to get that done, which is sad. So we need to elevate his career so that I can understand his name. I learned how to pronounce Quavagene Wallace after one film. So how is it that I don't know how to pronounce this kid's name? I've seen every season of Cobra Kai and I've seen Blue Beetle. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyway, I don't know. Watch this film. Don't watch this film. I don't know. The world's gonna change your way. It'll resonate with some people. There's some parts of it I thought were dumb. There's some parts of it that I really liked. It kind of balanced out in the end. There's this one part where his cousin, who's played by Becky G, in this is like, I deserve a luxury dump. And I was just like, oh my God. And so she asks Jamie to watch over the bathroom. They're sneaking into a bathroom that they're obviously not supposed to use, so she can take a nice shit, And of course, when she exits the bathroom like a total asshole. When it becomes like a moment for the film, and I'm like, first of all, who exits the bathroom like that when they're trying to use it covertly in the first place? That was my thought. My instant thought was, as a person who has probably done this before, in real life, I don't think you exit that room that you're not supposed to be in with the "woo boy." Yeah, it's just not really. I mean, it's what the scene needed in order for it to move forward, but it ended up just being ridiculous. Like, I didn't laugh. It didn't get me. I wasn't like, oh, that's a good joke. Look at, they're being funny. I was like, that was dumb. Thanks. Let's move on. So, just things like that. But then it'll come back through. I really loved once they revealed where Susan Sarandon got her super soldier from, love that. I thought that was great. The backstory and everything, and there's a moment where that sort of comes into play. The moment comes like full circle. Love it. So there's certain things where it was like love it or hate it, and kind of all leave it out in the end. I felt maybe that this was marginally better than earlier this year, this Shazam Fury of the Gods movie. The audio description here, I thought was pretty good. I might have gone with a different narrator. This film has such a strong Latino leaning that I don't know why we didn't lean into that with audio description as well, but I don't know. It was just a little thing. In a world where I constantly think about representation and how people like to see themselves on screen, I think probably the target demographic that is going to like/love this film for the longest period of time would have probably enjoyed hearing that voice on there. You know, not every person who is Hispanic/Latinx necessarily speaks Spanish fluently enough to listen to it in Spanish. So they might be listening to the English version of it and would like to hear that representation. It's just a thought. Just a little thought that I had. But this film is so weird that I felt like I was trying to keep up with it, but not from an audio description standpoint. I felt like the action scenes were well described. The things that the Beetle turns into, the combat sequences. There's some jokes. It tries to stay light, where they're having a conversation, and there was like a body that he just dispatched that like falls back down in the middle of a conversation. So it's like, oh, I forgot about that one. It tracks stuff like that really well. So I thought that was fine. The fights between the armored people, powered people are good. I don't. Also, try to avoid spoilers. So yes, I thought I didn't really have like a problem with the description necessarily, but I would say that I didn't necessarily understand the script very well and what it was trying to do. I didn't feel like we necessarily communicated Blue Beetle's origin story in the best and easiest way possible. I know they couldn't spend the whole movie on it, but sometimes it just means you have a writer that's stuck and you just need another writer to come in and take a second pair of eyes on the script and say, well, what if we did this instead? What if we did this differently? Because, like I said, this is definitely a hero that I feel like needs a lot of explanation, and I would not be able to tell you after seeing this film necessarily what this backstory is. I feel like I have gaps. I have questions that I need to ask like a Blue Beetle comic book fan, and I would hope that I don't need that with other heroes. So it's a mixed bag. It's mostly fun. It's got a really talented cast, aside from Susan Sarandon, who is talented, just not in this film. So overall, I think it's a decent film. It ranks like marginally better than Shazam Fury of the Gods for me, which I gave a C+ to. So I would say I'm gonna give Blue Beetle a C+. It's basically the same grade. If I broke it down more into like actual numbers, I'm sure this would be like a 78 and the other would be like a 77 or 76. Just like sort of like just slight numbers apart. But I would give this a slight edge, but I felt about the same, just with a slight edge to Blue Beetle. So that's my grade. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and please click that subscribe button because I'm so close to smashing 200, which is my goal for the end of the year. I want to be on the other side of 200. So basically 201 and up is what I want. I just need like 5 more people to click subscribe. I love talking about audio description and stuff from a blind perspective. So that's a reason to subscribe. I also have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can follow me on X, Threads, or Instagram at macthemovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the adna.org. That's the adna.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite film and television series. That's it for me today. I will watch something else and see you guys on the other side.